What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the stream, and hope y'all are having an amazing Monday. I know mine's been pretty awesome so far, so I hope yours is as well. So today, of course, we are jumping back into the bust that we are working on. So yesterday we got a lot done on his face and on his hair and on the little necklace that he's wearing. Today I want to start working on some of the leather stuff, specifically his shoulder pads, maybe some of his shirt, maybe some of the straps as well as doing a little bit of cleanup on the face, because there are a few things that I want to get done with that. So without further ado, I thought I said Wednesday. Did I say Monday? Whatever. My Wednesday has been pretty awesome. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started back on this dude. So first things first, let's go ahead and grab some of the colors that we use for his skin tone. And we're going to go ahead and do some work on that. So basically all I'm going to be doing is kind of cleaning up some of these transitions, because they're still not exactly where I want them to be. Yes, also, let me make fun of you and then also... No, I'm joking. I hope you're doing well, Calico. So as usual, we're going to start working in our transitions with a glaze. Once again, a glaze is simply a 50% mixture of paint and water, just to get a nice transparent, or not transparent, translucent layer going. I feel like that's a line from a like a sitcom or something. Who else but Calico? So we're just going to start cleaning up some of these transitions, just making them a little bit smoother. Make sure that we get this looking as good as we can here. Fair. Did Family Guy actually do something like that, or are you just saying it sounds like it would be something Family Guy does? Oh, that's right, yeah. And of course followed up by the absolute most ridiculous, or preceded by the absolute most ridiculous thing you can possibly think of. Which I feel like is most of Family Guy's shtick. Just absolute straight shock humor. Which I'm fine with. It's fun sometimes. Again, all I'm doing here is I'm just cleaning up some of these blends just to make it look a little bit smoother. All right, cool. I like where that's going. There's still a little bit of work to be done on some places, like on his neck, because I really didn't work too terribly hard on the neck the last time. I just kind of basically lined in the colors, but I didn't really do a ton of cleanup there, so we'll come back to that a little bit later. But for now, I want to go ahead and start in with at least base coating these shoulder pads. So I'm going to use a little bit of a color called German Black, or German Black Brown, I guess you should call it, is the proper name. Just a nice dark brown color. And this is going to be our base coat for the shoulder pads. And even though it's a very dark color, we're not really going to be using... our finish is not going to be that dark. This is just going to be our base coat. So let's go ahead and start watering it down a little bit. Oh, I ruined it. Okay. Yeah. So one of the interesting things about the texture, there is a lot of texture on the shoulder pads. So I'm going to have to thin down the paint a little bit more than I would normally, just to make sure that the paint gets in all those cool little details here. But I'm super excited because this is random. It has nothing to do with miniatures, but I actually made my very last car payment on my car today, so that's a massive expense that's finally paid off. No more car payment for this guy, at least not for a while. Not till I get super bored with my current vehicle of choice. Which is actually probably going to be why I get a new car, if I do, anytime soon. So today has been kind of a good day. Also work from home, which is always fun and a little bit more relaxing. I feel like I get a lot more done when I go into my office, but it is so much more relaxing to just kind of be at home. For me, it's a little bit more tranquil, I guess you could call it. I guess you could say. What's going on, Liam? Yes, I watched. So I watched the some of the original like D&D campaign, but mostly just the like clips and then the TV show. Like I love the you know there's a lot of good that came from Critical Role, like D&D kind of becoming more in the public spotlight, them becoming the largest streamer in Twitch history, and well, at least earning the most. But I find it very hard to sit down for 4 hours and watch somebody else play D&D, whereas I can go and play D&D for 4 hours myself, if that makes sense. Trials of Imagination is a little bit different because they're a little bit more short form, and the few long form things that they have had, I was involved with, so I kind of had to be there. No, I watched anime a little bit. I mean, I'm not like a weeb by any stretch of the imagination, but there are some animes that I've watched and really enjoyed. Like I watched through Parasite, which I really enjoyed. I watched through Seven Deadly Sins because I was bored one day and it looked weird. I watched through Castlevania. I watched through, of course, Vox Machina. And depending on whether or not you're a purist, you may not consider Avatar: The Last Airbender anime, but that, watched through that multiple times. So there's a couple animes that I really enjoy. Oh, and what is the other one? I haven't. I have not, actually. Pretty much the only time I watch anime is if it's on Netflix and I'm bored with whatever else is on Netflix. But I am all for trying new things and getting recommendations. So if you have a recommendation, drop it down below. Be more than happy to take a watch. Interesting. So it's kind of like just a normal everyday guy gets thrust into this world of monsters and mayhem. It's actually, what was it called? I can't remember what it was called, but there was a podcast, kind of almost like an audio drama, or not an audio, almost like an audiobook podcast where they would come out with episodes that would where the guy would like narrate everything and do all the voice and stuff. So, but it was very similar to where this guy would essentially be transported in and out of this fantasy world depending on different circumstances. It was actually incredibly good and it was a lot of fun. Love to read back through it, but I don't remember what it was called. But yes, that would be something that's right up my alley. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and do a second coat over here just to make sure we are nice and opaque on our first layer. Because this is a nice dark, it's a very rich looking brown, almost chocolatey. I'm also trying to think, as I paint this, I'm trying to think of what color I want to make these little metal rivets. So I'm imagining this because there really was no such thing as studded leather. What you had was plate mail with paper, or not paper, with cloth over it. Basically to kind of make the armor look a little bit more formal, and it was very popular with nobles. Well, there was no such thing as like studded leather armor. So I'm imagining that's what this guy is wearing. He's wearing, kind of this leather over metal plate kind of thing, so that these rivets are actually holding this leather onto other armor. So if that's the case, then they would be steel, because you don't want those rivets coming undone. But I also want to stylize this guy. So the question then is, do I want to stylize it in maybe brass or gold rivets, or do I want to keep them more closer to what would actually have been, and that is silver? Because this isn't necessarily a fantasy character, because he's just some sort of human fighter. My day is going great, Liam, and I hope yours is as well. It's been a good Monday. Again, I said Monday. Calico, you got my head. I was thinking Wednesday, and I said Monday, and I blame you. But no, my day is going well, and I hope yours is as well. I tell you what, that TOI episode, so TOI stands for those of you who don't know, Trials of Imagination. It is a D&D stream on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central. And they had one heck of an episode last night that kind of brought together a bunch of things that happened. And it was crazy. A lot of people died. And that's all I'll say. Mostly because if anybody watches it, I don't want it to be spoiled for them. It's because you mentioned Monday. If you hadn't mentioned Monday, I would have been like, "Oh yeah, how's your Wednesday going?" No. I blame you, Calico. I blame you. What's going, Sephiroth? Thanks for the follow. Welcome to the stream. I'm just painting a bust. Which we'll hopefully get done at least the leather bits today. I'm not so sure though, because I'm gonna try some new techniques on this, on the leather, to try to give it some good texture versus just kind of painting it like flat would be the term, I guess. Calico, I feel like you saying that has another context and I'm scared to ask, but okay. You, looks like there was a typo there. You did what's your first full campaign character? Gotcha. What was your first campaign character? Mine was a human bard, with really, really low intelligence and wisdom, which made it incredibly fun to play. Because he could make all the mistakes and it'd still be in character. Nice. All right, so let's do the color for the shirt. So I'm thinking for the shirt, almost like a burlap. So I'm going to take my, let's see, what color do I want to use? Or I should say, what color triad do I want to use? I'm thinking this here. So I think those colors will look good for shadows, base coat, and highlights. So we'll start with some olive skin shadow, believe it or not. And this will be our base coat for our kind of shade. It's not going to look exactly like I want it up front, but that's part of the process. Ultimately, I want this shirt to kind of look like a natural cotton color, if you will. Almost like it's just a really simple shirt, and that he spent all his money on his sword and on his armor, but almost nothing on his clothing. I don't think I've ever played a Fire Ganassi. Mostly because, like, for me, I try to kind of, it's hard to describe, I guess. I don't want to say I'm a power player, but I am more of a optimizer. So I try to pick races that give me something that will, you know, add bonuses to my class. Like, for instance, my monk is going to be Way of the Drunken Master. Way of the Drunken Master Monk, which is really, really good at crowd control at higher levels because you can do things like get 5 attacks with Flurry of Blows, but they all have to be on different creatures. And so what I did is I gave him a boost to, I wanted a character that gave him a boost to Dex and a boost to Con, because if he's going to be in crowd control, he's got to be on the front line, so he's got to be able to take a hit. So I went with a Goblin, because Goblins have both a bonus to Dex and a bonus to Con, as well as giving me things like Fury of the Small and the ability to disengage as a bonus action. So a really, really good, fast frontline character. And it kind of makes sense too, because it's a goblin, so it's being drunk all the time is actually kind of one of those goblin tropes. So it still kind of works. Really isn't. It's actually quite useful, especially at lower levels, because you're not always going to want to stay in combat. You might want to get the heck out of there or move to another opponent. Like maybe you get ambushed and you have a couple creatures that you still want to hit. Just use your bonus action to disengage, get away, and then use your action to attack, or use your attack action to attack, bonus action, get the heck out of there, and you don't have to worry about getting hit. So lower levels, it's extremely useful. The keyword there is almost off the bat, but not right off the bat. And there are still certain prerequisites that have to be met before I can disengage. Like I believe it is, only if I hit, I can disengage. If I don't hit, I still want the ability to get the heck out of there instead of having to stay right beside him. What, for the pineapple on pizza, Calico? Really hasn't been forever. I'm pretty sure it's been Monday. It was Monday that you sent that emoji. This time I actually mean Monday and not Wednesday, but also Monday. But back to Sephiroth's point, disengage as a bonus action is never useless, ever useless, because there are always situations where you may not want to use your action to attack and wouldn't get that bonus action. So while it may not be super useful at all times, it is still 100% useful, especially at lower levels, especially when we're talking about, still being able to attack, still being able to use your action for something else. All right, so we've got our base coats down for the shirt and the armor. Now, like I said, I'm going to try something new with the armor. I have no idea if it's going to work, but we're going to try it anyway. So I'm going to take some orange, actually. No, they don't get Step of the Wind at level 1. Because I'm at level 1 and I do not have Step of the Wind. So we'll take that and then we will grab some of our base coats. Add just a touch of orange to it. Water it down. And then we will bring in some Tan Earth by Vallejo. We'll add a little bit of that to it as well. What we're going to start doing is we're going to start building up the wear pattern of this leather. And the way we're going to do that is a technique called cross-hatching. We're also going to use some stippling. We're going to use a bunch of new techniques that I haven't actually used on stream yet. So, cross-hatching is literally just drawing thin lines in one direction to simulate texture. So I'm going to do this all in the same direction on all of the, not on all of the tallest parts of the leather here. So I'm not getting down to right below where the rivets are. And I'm not getting close to the edge, just where those bits start to wrinkle up a little bit. So essentially what we're doing is we're using this cross-hatching pattern to build in our highlights, but in doing so, we are also adding texture. So we're kind of hitting two birds with one stone. And what we'll do is once we get to the end and kind of do everything, we'll go back and do the same thing in the opposite direction. And some of the cross-hatching here is rather large, and I'm doing it in random spots, so I'm not really being very attentive to where these are being laid down, because the actual wear pattern that I'm wanting to convey, which is more of a kind of, I guess you could say, sun-baked wear pattern, along with some scratches from just being armor and being worn, isn't going to be as regular. At least in the way that I'm imagining this armor to look. And then on the sides, I'm just gonna kind of put random dots here and there. Not really paying attention to where I put them. Again, because this is all just going to be random wear patterns. And I definitely act and am hopefully sounding like I know what I'm doing, but I absolutely do not, and this is the first time I've ever tried this. So hopefully it turns out well. Just for fun. Painting for me is a hobby. So I'm not gonna be using it on like a tabletop or anything like that. It's literally just gonna be displayed on my little display back there, which I'm hoping to upgrade soon, but. But yeah, just for fun. But one of the things that doing larger form miniatures like bust and 75mm versions versus like tabletop stuff that I do is doing this teaches you different techniques that you can apply to other sizes of miniatures. So like I may not go into as much detail in those other miniatures that I do, but it makes my painting overall a higher quality. And so you can almost think of this as not just for enjoyment, but also to practice new techniques. For instance, normally I do what's called painting flat, which means that I add highlights and depth to things, but I don't ever add texture. So this is a kind of a new thing for me. So we're going to take our color and we're going to do the exact same thing to the other side. So a lot of the Tiamat miniatures out there that are available for purchase are already painted. Like WizKids has their giant Tiamat beast of a miniature, which is like $500. But when I'm painting miniatures that I'm going to be using on the tabletop, I will paint miniatures that I'm actively going to be using. I'm never going to paint just like a random Tiamat miniature in hopes that I actually, my players engage Tiamat at some point. Right, so for instance, I'm running Wild Beyond the Witchlight with my players right now. And so I'll paint Bavlorna, Blightstraw, I'll paint all the different hags or some of the different creatures that I don't have in my arsenal, but I'm not going to paint like Tiamat because I know for a fact I'm not going to be using her anytime soon. So I'm not going to put forth the effort that it takes to paint a miniature that large if I'm not going to use them. Now that's kind of my mindset when it comes to practical miniatures. When it comes to display miniatures, well, they're display miniatures, so it's a whole different reason why I'm painting them. I'm painting this because I want it to look good, not because I'll necessarily use it on the tabletop. So it's just different ways of looking at the whole process in totality. Yes, I was. I was the changeling. What PDF? If I have purchased content from Wizards of the Coast, I don't share it. So I did not share a PDF of Wild Beyond the Witchlight. So right now I'm just putting random dots and lines all over the cross hatching. That's just to give it a little bit more of like a random wear pattern. Well, if content sharing was on for... Yeah, there's a difference between sharing a PDF and content sharing on D&D Beyond. Like, I'm not gonna like send somebody a PDF of Wild Beyond the Witchlight because that's illegal. But I will turn on content sharing on D&D Beyond because they have the permissions to do that. and it's not illegal. Okay, so we're going to do the opposite cross hatching on this side. Again, I'm not really being super careful with my cross hatching on here. I'm really just trying to be a little bit random. Like the size, the distance between them, they're all going to be random. At least on the shoulder pads. When it comes down to the straps on the front, I'm going to be a lot more intentional on how I do those. Did see a couple areas that are still white next to these rivets, so I'm gonna go ahead and correct those. And then we'll go ahead and we'll add some dots and random bits to this side as well. All right, and once again, we'll go ahead and add a little bit more of this desert tan, start bringing out a little bit more of a lighter color here. And we're gonna do the same thing. Add a little bit of orange there too. We'll do the same thing, except we're gonna move a little bit higher. Get to the color I want first, there we go. So we're not going to go as deep into or deep towards these little rivets as I was with that. And make a little bit smaller. Be a little bit more intentional with where I'm at with these. And we're going to do the same thing that we just did. We're just going to move a little bit higher. Towards the rivets. With this campaign, so I had one that unfortunately we had to stop playing because schedules just didn't line up, but that wasn't live. The live one that I'm playing in, or not playing in, DMing, we are to right at the end of chapter 2, moving into chapter 3, so into the Thither, which is the second area of Prismeer. So they just hit level 3 and they're moving on. Actually, technically they just hit level 4 because you gain a level for every area of Prismeer you get to, and then you gain a level for every hag you have an interaction with. So once again, we'll just add random dots along the side. I'll be a little bit more sparse with these. Versus what we were with the other one. Again, just adding that wear pattern in. And we'll wait for that to dry, and while that dries, we'll go to the other side. Yep, that's exactly kind of the look we're going for now. We'll hopefully refine it a little bit more as we go. Cool. And do the sides. And so far we've on this we've made some really big, long, sweeping cross hatches. And so what we're going to do after we get done with this shade and we move on to the darker shade, we're going to start in with much smaller, both in area and in volume, or I guess you could say width more. Probably a faster way to do this, but you know what? Just because it's faster don't mean it's better. Sometimes the journey is just as important as the destination. Thank you, Brandon Sanderson. And then we'll add some of our random dots here and there. Again, not really paying attention to where we put it. It's okay if we put it in areas that we didn't put the cross hatching, because the whole purpose of this is to make it look worn and irregular. Wait, I'm confused. Calico. By the time I read what? Or am I looking in Discord for... Nope. No clue. So you would be right in that. So I'm kind of concentrating at this point with the trying to make sure, like, this new technique, I don't just absolutely screw this miniature up. there. There we are. Cool. All right, so we're getting somewhere with that leather look. Take some more of this tan, mix it in, bring us up to our next shade. Again, we want to kind of bring in some of our other paint, which is why I'm not using that completely by itself yet, because we want all of our paints to look and be consistent with one another so that it doesn't look too outlandish. So I'm going to move to a smaller brush as we get more accurate with our cross hatching, whatever you call it. So you can kind of see where we're going with this. Again, just these small little, almost like scratch mark style cross hatching. Much smaller than what we were looking at earlier. Also going to be a little bit less dense as the other ones were. And we'll add a little bit on our shoulders edge here too. And then we'll start to kind of work in the corners here. So we kind of get more of a kind of wear pattern established. So we've got this wear across the edge of the shoulder pauldron. The shoulder pauldron is extremely redundant, but so that we have kind of these edges of where he would be rubbing up against stuff, and it would kind of get caught on things and stuff like that. So. There we go. I think it's looking pretty good for not having no idea what I'm doing with this leather texture. Well, I kind of have an idea of what I'm doing, but I've never done it before, so not bad for having never done it, I'd say. Okay, And then we'll go ahead and do the opposite direction once it's dry. Might help if I actually do this in frame too, wouldn't it? Go. Yeah, it's starting to look pretty good. And then, as always, we will put these random areas on our shoulder pauldron here. And one of the things that we're going to do is once we get to our kind of brightest layers is we're actually going to start adding in things like wear lines and areas where the leather may have been nicked. Things like that. But for right now, we're just trying to kind of establish our wear pattern. There we go. I'm good so far. That sounds about right for a D&D quote. Alright, so we're going to take some of this desert tan and we're going to add a little bit of Ushabti bone to it. If I don't drop the paint. Got it. Because we're going to want to start getting a little bit brighter and a little bit lighter because we want to eventually get down to where it looks like the tan or the leather has been worn down through the finish all the way down to bare leather. So we're just going to keep brightening it up and brightening it up. Again, we'll add a little bit to our corner here. Like so. And then we'll start. This will probably be close to, if not the final kind of cross-hatching that we do. But I'm not sure yet. Depend on how it looks. Being very intentional with how and where I put these compared to what I was on the previous layers. we'll add just a bit of a edge highlight along here, just in certain areas, like so. Again, to make it look like it was being nicked on stuff. And again, key here is to make sure that you have a sharp tip on your brush and your paint has been thinned. What do I think about what in Matt's D&D? Are you talking about Igville? No, they're not. We did the Lost Things plot hook. Because it's a lot funnier to have people going around without a sense of fashion. Or to have lost 3 inches of height. Or the ability to tell a lie. Is significant, or the ability to enter, or to have the curse where they can't enter a door without being able to knock, with having to knock first. It's significantly more entertaining. And with the group that I'm in, they're a lot more of a group that enjoys the goofiness that can come about in D&D much more than the like the serious quote unquote serious campaigns. Like, they would much prefer to be goofy, which I'm all about. You know, if that's kind of like, however you have fun in D&D, do it. If you have fun being goofy, then be freaking goofy, man. And they want to be goofy, so. None of the hooks. There's only 2 hooks. The one is that you are hired to save Igville because she is a patron of essentially a retired warlock adventurer. And then the other one is you snuck into the Witchlight Carnival as a kid and you basically had something stolen from you. Those are the only 2 plot hooks for Wild Beyond the Witchlight. Okay. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this up to my absolutely brightest color. And again, I am bringing in some of that color from before. What I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be adding dings and scratches just in random areas to make it look like this is armor that is well used. And I don't want this to be consistent in any of the same places or anything like that, because these are supposed to be dings and dents and things. Just to give it a little bit of texture. And I believe that's a good look for now. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this pure Ishtabi bone, and I'm going to paint all the stitching down the side. Which could probably be one of the more tedious things to do in this miniature, or on this miniature. So there are a lot of stitches, but this is one of those detail things that's going to make this thing pop. Gotcha. Oops, it's the wrong color. I said pure Ishtabi bone. What a nerd. So I'm debating on whether or not to go ahead and add a wash to this leather. Because I think it would bring out some of the natural texture this has and really add to it. But at the same time, anytime you add a wash, what's going to happen is you're going to end up muting some of the colors you've already put down. So it will naturally get darker and darker. So if I do add a wash, I'll have to go back and probably do 1 or 2 more layers of this cross hatching to bring back some of the brightness that I'm looking for, which I'm fine with. But that is just an extra step we'd have to take if we were going to do the wash. I don't have any players who are fairies. So I have no opinion. But I'm always of the opinion to let the players play whatever they want. If you are unable to deal with a certain race or class or character type in your campaign, then you're just a bad DM. So I try to make sure that my players can play whatever they want, whenever they want, with no restriction, unless, with the only exception to that, is my DM for a campaign that I play in on Sundays basically said you cannot play any traditionally evil characters. So you can't play goblin race, you can't play anything like that. And the reason being is actually very apparent once we actually got into the actual like meat and potatoes of the story. So there are times when you do it for the story, but if you're doing it because, you know, there are certain stats or whatever that you as the DM don't like, then you're just a bad DM. Is there room in what? Well, it's an in-person campaign, so unless you are in North Carolina, it doesn't matter if there's room or not. It doesn't matter if Aarakocra are broken or not. If you, as the DM, can't handle that stat block, then you just need to be a better DM. There are plenty of monsters in D&D that can deal with flying, and plenty of spells that can prevent people from flying. I stand by what I said. If there is a class in D&D that you have trouble dealing with, or that you ban because I should say that you ban because you can't deal with it, then you need to kind of learn how to be better as a DM, because there was in the first campaign I ever DM'd, there was a guy who power played, and he basically did the better ranger build, where he was a fighter with 2-weapon fighting and crossbow mastery, and he carried around two hand crossbows. And because you ignore the loading effect, and then he got, I can't remember which one it is, it might have been archery or master or something like that, where you get It's basically the same thing as Grape Weapon Mastery, where you get a plus or a -5 to hit, plus 10, and he at like level 10 was doing like 70-80 damage per hit. And so I had to adapt to that. I couldn't just tell him, nope, you can't do that anymore. No, I had to figure out exactly how to deal with that player. And that's a much better way of doing things than just outright banning a class or a feat or something like that. Because if it's broken, you know, then break your campaign. Figure out a way of combating it. Yes, it is. I was actually, the campaign that I just finished up, I had a Goliath Barbarian because, again, I like maxing stats, and Goliath is an amazing pairing with Barbarian. But he was, at the very beginning when I entered the campaign, I think it was at like level... It was at like level 12 or something like that, and the DM was like, all right, so everybody's got magic items and stuff, so you can get one magic item, you can roll on the table for it, and you'll get what you get. And then he gave me a certain amount of money to essentially buy, not essentially, just to buy stuff. And I rolled Boots of Flying for a Barbarian. Which was the greatest thing ever, to be honest. It was so much fun to play a flying barbarian. Make a couple corrections on this boy here. Like, I would do stuff like on the enemies that had a really high AC and nobody could hit them. I would just fly up to them, grapple them, fly 20, 30 feet up into the air and just let them go. It made my DM so mad. Then you're a bad DM. If you ban anything because you think your players aren't creative enough to use that to good effect, B, because you can't deal with it as a DM, or C, some other reason, like you're just a bad DM. There are ways to make things interesting. So if you ban a class like, say, Fighter because you think Fighter is basic, then you're just a bad DM. Because you can't, like, your players will come up with interesting things about their character. And if you ban a class, all you're doing is taking away player agency, which is never a good thing. Regardless of your reasoning. All right, so I am using some Agrax Earthshade to apply, or I'm applying Agrax Earthshade to this to kind of bring out some of those details that I was talking about earlier. And hopefully it does exactly what I want it to. It looks like it is right now, but we'll see ultimately if it does what I want it to do once it dries. But yeah, I don't like, and I will never ban a race, because essentially what it's saying is that I think I'm more intelligent or smarter or more creative or whatever than it either says, I should say, that I'm better, more creative, or whatever than the people who wrote Wizards of the Coast, which is just arrogant. Or it says that I can't deal with that race, therefore, instead of improving myself and my knowledge and my abilities to deal with certain situations as a DM, I'm just going to outright ban it. Either way, you're just not being a good DM. In my opinion. Now, of course, you know, other people have other opinions, and that's fine. That's just my opinion. No, because there's a difference between homebrewing a race and banning a race. If you're homebrewing a race, you're saying, you know, hey, I want to create a race that is different than what's already in the source material. It's like, okay, fine, that's great. You're being creative, you're adding to the experience of your players. So that's the thing, is if it's additive, do it, right? If you're adding something to the campaign, if you're giving more options, then do it. If you're taking away options without your players' consent, and that's the big thing too. If your players are like, hey, we think this is boring, can we change it? And you change it because you're like, yeah, sure, you know, I agree it's boring too. That's completely different. If your players want to do it, that's fine. If you're just saying, I can't deal with this race, I can't deal with this class, or I think this or that is boring, therefore I'm banning it, then whatever. And if you want to ban homebrew, the question is why, right? And I think once you come down to things like homebrew specifically, it boils down to a discussion with your players. It's a session one thing, right? If I had a DM who basically said, all right, guys, this is the way it's going to be, and you don't have a say in it, I would probably leave that campaign. If they said, hey, I'm thinking of these homebrew rules, what does the group think? And even if I disagree with it, the rest of the group wants to do it, then I'm fine with that. Because again, it leaves the decision in the player's hands, and you as the DM are basically, you know, you're not saying do it my way or get out, right? Because again, you're not telling your story, you're telling the players, you're helping tell the player's story. They're the ones who are, you know, creating memories and things like that. You're facilitating that. You're not the quote unquote god of your universe, even though when it comes to rules, you are. Everything should be done in cooperation. The DM should enforce the rules either as written or the homebrew rules that you as a group decide on. Otherwise, what's the point? Why would anybody want to play with somebody who is essentially going to enforce something that they don't want to play? I wouldn't stay in that group, and very few people I think would. Again, it depends. I think it depends on what the DM and the players talk over, right? Because you know, for instance, in the campaign I was talking about on Sunday, I mentioned that I used Goblin because I wanted the addition to Con and Dex, and I just so happened to get a couple other cool benefits as well. Well, my DM specifically said he did not want anybody playing a Goblin, so he and I got together. I'm like, look, I really want to use this class. There's some cool benefits to it. And he said, okay, well, how about we do this? I will let you reskin another race as a Goblin, so you can still get Fury the Small, so you can still get that disengage, so you can still get, you know, the bonus to Dex and Con. So in that case, we homebrewed it just so that we could still meet the requirements of the story and not break the requirements of the story, but I would still be able to get, you know, what I wanted out of my character. So if you do something like that and you talk over it with your player and you come to a concession, then yeah, you know, whatever. It's only when you are dictating something to the players and you say, you are not allowed to do this because I don't want to do it. That's when you're being a bad DM. All right, so I'm trying to kind of figure out how I want to do the leather effect on his, on like these bits here, the actual strapping. Because the strapping would wear very, very different than the top would. So it ended up being, so we kind of homebrewed a, what do you call it? A gnome. So essentially my backstory is that the whole thing is based upon like we're sailing to this new world. And the reason you couldn't be evil is because for whatever reason, these traditionally evil characters like goblins are being brought in from somewhere, we don't know where, and are kind of harrying this area and causing a lot of disturbances. And so he didn't want, you know, like a player to, you know, he didn't want to end up with PvP right off the bat. And so what we did is my backstory is essentially my character is was sailing to this new world, and he was shipwrecked and he was stranded in the on this island by himself for 10 to 15 years. And so he had to fight off wildlife and things like that with his bare hands because he didn't have any weapons or spells, which is why we went with the monk class and specifically Drunken Master, because he doesn't exactly know what he's doing. He just kind of does it. He does what he thinks works. But we kind of framed it as he's like a feral gnome. So that's how we kind of were able to kind of explain why he has this goblin subclass when he's a gnome. Again, if you are taking something away from the players because you don't want to deal with it, it's being a bad DM. That's just my opinion. If you say I'm banning pets and not even letting them roll, you know, the checks to have pets, then why? It's if you're trying to say, well, because they'll forget about them, then all you're doing is saying that you don't trust your players enough to actually let them do what they want to do, which again is you being a bad DM. You know, if there's rules for it and the players want to do it, it's their story, not yours. Let them do it. And just make sure that they follow the rules when doing it. Now, if you want to add consequences in for them forgetting about their pet, like maybe they tame an owlbear and, you know, like 2-3 weeks in the campaign, they don't feed it, then the owlbear turns on them and attacks them. Right? So don't outright ban stuff, use it and the rules and what would happen in reality if they don't feed a friggin' bear, right? And use that to your advantage instead of taking away agency from them. Okay. So there's also, kind of interestingly, I don't know how well you can see it, but there's like this texturing on his shirt too. So I'm just trying to kind of figure out how exactly I want to approach that. I don't want to approach it in the same way I'm approaching the leather. What about Jester's Ferret? Jester's Ferret was also the Traveler. So he wasn't exactly just a normal pet. And yes, taming an owlbear is hard, but that's the point. If they want to try to tame an owlbear, let them do it. see what happens. Jester is one of the characters from Critical Role. Yep, Laura Bailey's character. She was a blue tiefling cleric, I believe is what her class was. She was a very bad cleric, but she was a cleric. And the Traveler was her deity. And the Traveler kind of followed her around as this pet ferret. Which I think was actually really fun. But half the time the ferret was basically dead. I'm just bringing out the brightness again after that wash, just with a couple more layers here. Yep, absolutely. Yep, I think you would have to do things like, you know, have them actually roleplay how they tame it, and then make a series of rolls instead of just 1 or 2 rolls. And they'd have to pass every single roll in order to successfully tame it. Okay, so while that dries, I'm gonna go ahead. I think first thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and apply that same Agrax Earthshade to his belting or strapping, whatever you want to call it, just so that we can kind of see more of the detail that we're looking at here. And maybe his cross-hatching isn't as worn, which it probably would be, as his... Did I say cross-hatching? I meant strapping. If his strapping isn't as worn out as the rest of it, like the pauldrons, like maybe he got it replaced at one point. Because I'd feel like, especially if all you have are pauldrons, that whatever you're wearing would wear out pretty quickly. Yeah, the problem with magic, especially with stuff like that, you know, again, you'd still have to, like, magic only takes you so far. Because, for instance, like, okay, you tame the owlbear. Now what? Okay, well, you need to feed it. Oh, I have an idea. I don't know if this is going to work, y'all, but we're going to try it. We're going to take our texture palette. We're actually going to dry brush the highlights onto the shirt. So yeah, I think it would take a lot more, should take a lot more, I should say, than just a couple of rolls or a magic spell. because you'd have to maintain that relationship. You couldn't just like cast animal friendship and then that's it. You know, if you were wanting to keep it as a pet, like an actual pet, then you'd have to do a little bit more than that, I would say. And again, it depends on what you're trying to tame, right? If you're trying to tame a friggin' owlbear, then yeah, it's going to require a lot of work on the player's part. It's probably too big. But you know, again, what are you feeding it? And again, I think this is, I say all this is stuff that you need to cover in session 0. This is not something that you can just say, all right, guys, this is the way it's going to be, right? What if the players want to have a campaign where they can do stuff like that, but it's a new group? They're new players, like they don't really know all the intricacies or what you can or can't do. And so you kind of have to walk them through that. So I think there are a lot of things that you would need to consider as the DM and kind of figure out and discuss with the players and then make that decision. Like, what do the players want out of the campaign? What are their goals, right? What is, you know, like, just ask them, like, what one thing do you think would be really cool if it happened? And it's like, oh, it'd be really cool if we could like tame a pet. Like, all right, cool. How am I going to get them to a place where they can tame a pet? And then what am I going to ask them to do? What kind of, you know, and kind of come up with these things beforehand. So it's not, you know, it's not like a one-stop, hey, do this one check and that's it, right? It would be an ongoing thing. But, you know, as I've said before, I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot, is it's all about the player. What do they want out of the campaign, not what you want out of the campaign. You're there to facilitate the players and not take over for the players. That's what the DM is there for. Now, obviously, you get to play the game too, which is part of the fun about being a DM. But you have to make sure that whatever you do, the players are having fun. First and foremost, because if they're not, then you're doing something wrong, because it's about them, not you. At least that's the way that I approach being a DM. So what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to kind of dry brush on my highlights here. What's going on, man? Welcome to this stream, and thank you. I hope you're not too concerned about the massive amounts of nerdiness that's happening right now in the discussion on the theories of being what it means to be a DM. What do you think? What's your opinion? Should what's the most like out of the conversation you've heard so far? Where are you? Man, if I could talk, it would be nice. Where are you falling? I'm very passionate about my my D&D, if you couldn't tell. Because I've had some bad experiences as a player, so I want to make sure that my players, as you know, when I DM, my players have a good time. You know, so I have very, very strong opinions when it comes to DMing. Well, I appreciate it. And I'm sorry if I insulted anybody earlier, but because I used a little bit of strong language, but you know, it's just trying to get my feelings across, like, but yeah, those are just, it's where I'm at. All right, so go ahead and fix some of these mistakes we made while we were dry brushing. I think dry brushing that shirt was the right call because it gave quite a nice texture to it. What do y'all think? I think it looks really nice. I love how you tried so badly. that the auto DM or the auto whatever you call it, the auto DM. Auto mod got you on that one. It's like, you're not slipping that past us. See, now I kind of want to see Calico, like what happens, like I don't think I have a like a ban limit or anything like that on how many times people can get caught by the moderator. I'd love to see like all of your creative ways of trying to get curse words past the auto moderator. That would be fun to watch. Frick on a stick. Exactly. All right, so trying to also think of how I'm going to do that sword. But while I think on that, let's go ahead and do the rest of his pauldron here. So we are going to start off with some grays. Which what? Put that back. And then we'll put that, we'll keep that out. All right, cool. So the three colors I'm going to use here are going to be black gray, light gray, and then sky gray. So one of the things that I've been learning about non-metallic metal specifically is that you really, really want a massive jump in color. So we're going to go from dark to light pretty quickly here. We're going to start off with a base coat of black gray. If a fairy approached Igville, I mean, she wouldn't do anything because she's the Archfey. But to be fair, whenever I'm running a campaign, I'm really bad about reading ahead. So I'll read like a chapter ahead. So I have no idea how Wild Beyond the Witchlight actually ends, but I'll figure it out once I get there. It'll be as much of a surprise for me once I read it. I'll be like, oh, I can't wait for my players to see this. I mean, in Wild Beyond the Witchlight, she can't do anything because she's trapped. So, she would probably just do nothing. Oh, I'm gonna have to use that line. Oh my gosh. Calico, that was a beautiful piece of literature that you just wrote. I'm just saying. I applaud you, madam. At least I would if I wasn't holding a brush and a bust. Not gonna lie, I never in my life did I think I would hear a sentence like that, but shoot, go ahead. Like in mythology or in D&D specifically? Because I know you mentioned that in the TOI Discord. Gotcha. Oh boy. That would be a line for sure. I really am going to use that short sword personality quip, Calico. I really am. I might actually try to work it into Trials of Imagination once I get brought in. So I think that is going to be hilarious if that was something that Tanner said. By the way, for those of y'all who don't know, Trials of Imagination, which is on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central. One of the players is pregnant and is going on essentially maternity leave, I guess you could call it. And Matt, the DM, asked if I would be willing to play a character until she returns. So I will be starting that in 3 weeks. And then Mark, who that's Liam in chat, we're doing a special one-shot for him second Tuesday of June as well. So that's going to be fun. And I'm going to have the awesome privilege of DMing that. So I can't wait. It's going to be super awesome. Liam came up with a very, very cool concept for the one-shot, and I'm really, really excited to kind of get to be able to flesh it out and present it to the world. I don't. I really should. But it is twitch.tv /2bitlane. Yes. Each of the one-shots are going to feature one of the player characters. So we had Elbereth's, which is the first one we had that I DM'd a couple weeks ago. Next one's gonna be Mark. The one after that is yet to be determined, but it'll either be Millard or Nadar. And then once what is her name? Once SJ comes back from maternity leave, we'll do hers, and we'll also do Zyle's in the same one, so they're going to be in the same one shot. And the way that we're doing it is, essentially, it's always going to be the players playing the one-shots, but it won't necessarily be their characters, if that makes sense. It's really quick. I know this looks weird, but I'm actually using my desk lamp to kind of map out where these highlights would be. So I'm just going to paint in these highlights where I'm actually seeing natural light hit. Which is one of the benefits about having some nice lighting in this room. So I apologize, as I know a lot of y'all aren't going to be able to see exactly what's going on. But it's going to look awesome, I promise. Well, it may look awesome. I can promise you that it may look awesome. So you can kind of see now that, like, just doing the highlights on each one of those little balls. Again, just using my lamp is giving me like a natural light source so that I can kind of pinpoint where these highlights would be. I appreciate it. Of course, all of this is going to be refined once I'm finished kind of tracing all this out. Really, I just want to get kind of the central areas where we're looking at. I haven't heard that in a while either. To be fair, I think I've never heard, "Oh my gosh, your hair is amazing." Mostly because when I was younger, at least, if somebody told me my hair was amazing, I probably would have shaved it off anyway. Just be like, haha, you think my hair is amazing? Well, how about now? All right, and then this one would be just on the edge here. Oof, my hand's shaking. It's okay. Alright, so let's start with the ones on this side, kind of tracing out where they're going to be. One of the hard parts about painting in awkward positions like this is my hands. They start to shake because I'm not used to using those muscle groups in my hand. What's so bad? I feel like I'm missing something, and it's probably because I haven't been in chat. But it's okay. I'll go back and watch this while I'm trying to pick out stuff to put on TikTok, and I'll be like, oh. Oh, gotcha. Here we go. All right, time to do some refining here. All right, if a player you meet a very friendly green dragon. If as a player I meet a very friendly green dragon, just see Calico put something in my Discord and now I'm scared. I mean, dragons aren't intelligent, sentient creatures, so I'd be like, hey man, what's up? What you need? Pleasure to meet you. I wouldn't assume he's evil. This boy here is a little crooked, so we'll just make a correction there. Well, I appreciate that. And I hope it's a good passion too, because I know people tend to get all up in arms about silly things, and I have a tendency to do that too. So when I do get passionate, you know, I tend to lose a little bit of my gosh, I am blanking on everything today. It hasn't even been that long of a day either. Empathy, that's what I was looking for. I tend to lose a bit of my empathy, so I hope it's a good passion and not the bad passion. Yeah, that's kind of the same thing for me as Liam. So Like, obviously, I think my character would be scared. And depending on my character and what he would do, I think would determine my reaction. All right, let's see what funny you put in my... I like it. Oh man, that's a great use of that. That's a great use of that meme format. I must say. I love it. All right, so moving to the next color, which is this sky gray, which is almost a white gray. Then after this, we're gonna go full on, just bright white, and then we'll go from there. Yep, they are. But again, it depends, right? How much do you know? How much does your character know about dragons, right? Because we want to stay away from using a ton of meta knowledge. Like me as a player might know that dragons are typically evil, manipulative, arrogant, right? But I may, you know, my character may not know that, or he may, right? Or what if that particular green dragon is, you know, like a different kind of dragon, he wants to be better. But my character's a dragonborn and freaking hates dragons. Right? So, you know, there's a bunch of different possibilities happening here. And that, I think, would, for me, govern how I think my character would react. So one of the things that I always like to do whenever I'm doing non-metallic gold is add a little bit of an environmental reflection. So whether that be the sky or, you know, something around him or something like that. And I'm still learning when it comes to non-metallic metal, so I'm no expert by any stretch of the imagination. But in this case, I'm going to try to add kind of a dual reflection. On the top, I think I'm going to add a little bit of a reflectiveness as if he is these things are reflecting the sky. And then I'll add a little bit as if it's reflecting the leather below him. See how that turns out. It may turn out terrible, but you know what? It's all about trying new things here. I appreciate it, man. It's just one of those passions, I guess you could say. You know those things that that you do in life that are, for you, if nobody knew you did it, you would still have fun doing it? Like, there are those things that you kind of want to show off, right? You kind of want to do to show others, hey, look what I can do. Obviously, I have those as well. But for me, painting, even if nobody ever saw my painting, I think I would still enjoy doing it. Because it's, for me, I'm very, very ADHD. And for whatever reason, painting calms my mind down to the point where I can actually think. It is also, with ADHD comes a lot of struggles in keeping hobbies. And for me, painting has been that one hobby that I've been able to maintain, one niche hobby, I should say, that I've been able to maintain because of the aforementioned ability to kind of calm my mind while I do it, so that my mind isn't racing. It's kind of weird. Yeah, and that's, I think that's a common fear for a lot of people, but you know what? And this is something that I kind of talked about on a previous stream. It's like, obviously we care as people a lot about what people think, right? Or else things like depression and anxiety about what people will say about you wouldn't be a thing. But like, if somebody doesn't like what you do or thinks you're bad at it, it's like, you know what? If you enjoy it, who cares, right? If my painting sucked and I was the worst painter in the world and had absolutely no talent, but still enjoyed painting, guess what, man? I'd still do it. Because it's not about being good or being bad. It's about doing what you love and doing what you enjoy. As long as you enjoy doing it, do it as long as you want to. And everybody else can go pound sand. Yeah, I'm just now getting into Warhammer. I love it so far. I'm running an Ultramarines army right now. Actually, believe it or not, sitting right next to me on my desk is part or the like top hatch part of a Redemptor Dreadnought that I'm building. Not on stream, but because I think having a stream that's like building Warhammer models would get very expensive very soon. Because they are not cheap. Alright, so that is our first little, not highlight, but reflection. Next, we will move on to our white. So I'm going to pull out Titanium White by Monument Hobbies, which is the brightest white that I own. And we're going to put a central highlight right in the middle of each one of these like sub highlights. Yeah, that's what I'm into. Like, I'm not really into Age of Sigmar, to be honest. I'm more into 40k. At least that's what I have, a 40k army. There we go. Now the hard part that's going to come after I'm finished doing all these like highlights is going to be blending the highlights. These highlights or these reflections are a lot smaller than the ones that I normally do. But I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to blend them with a bit of a different color, like maybe a blue, to kind of start pulling in some of those reflection colors and then see what I get. Oof, that was a bad paint job. Oh man. That's what happens when my hand shakes. Bad stuff happens. There we go. All right, so they look reflective right now, but we'll try to kind of hone it in and make it look a little bit more, I guess you could say, nuanced. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab some of my Sky Blue, who is by Reaper, which I love Reaper paints, but unfortunately I can't get them anymore locally, so I'm gonna have to either outsource them or find a different, a different manufacturer, which I have. I've this Pro Acrylic Monument Hobbies, excellent, man. I love them so far. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of this dark color, mix a little bit of that sky blue in it just to lighten it up. And then once I get to a color that I like, I'm going to start glazing in between some of these transitions to start hopefully transitioning between the two. Why don't you like the Eldar? Is it just the lore behind it or the armies themselves? Because I heard Harlequins got a nerf later, but that they used to be really, really good. Again, I'm really new to Warhammer, so I really don't know, to be honest. It's one of those interesting things where it's like every hobbyist painter that I saw on YouTube or streamed and painted Warhammer stuff. So then I started painting Warhammer stuff, and then I'm like, you know what? I should probably play the game. The game is actually a lot of fun. Add a little bit more blue to this. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to thicken, or not thicken, but add a little bit more paint to the mix of this glaze so it's a little bit more opaque, but it's still a little bit transparent so that we get a little bit of those transitions and difference in luminance values for some of these paints. Still popping through. So it'll still get, should being the operative word here, give us a good transition, but it will give us a little bit more color and a little bit more opacity than what we are getting. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on this part, but it's details like this that will really set your painting apart. I say as somebody who really hasn't had my paintings set apart. Still working on it, y'all. Hopefully I'll get there one day. But for now, we'll just keep coming along, trying new things, and see what works. Gotcha. Yeah, I do. So I haven't read a ton of the lore. Like, I would like to get into some of the Black Library stuff, like, you know, maybe get some of their, you know, audiobooks off Audible or something. Really start getting into the lore, but I kind of want to learn the game first. You know what I mean? Because I have enough trouble learning the game. I don't need to throw in a bunch of convoluted lore. Although now that Horus Heresy is about to drop, I'd love to get to read some of the Horus Heresy lore before I start building an army for them. Let's grab some of our lights, blue or gray here, add some blue to it, and then go ahead and start glazing this too, because one of the things that I'm noticing is I'm really not liking the way that these transitions are turning out, because it looks really clunky and out of place, which is the problem that I've always had with smaller and with round shapes in non-metallic metal specifically. Flat shapes all day, man. I'm pretty good at doing stuff like swords, making them look pretty interesting and stuff like that, but I really struggle with round surfaces and making it look nice. But like I said, we'll try it, we'll see what we get. If we never tried anything new, then we would just fail as a person. So can you imagine if one day, because like none of us were born playing D&D, right? If we all play D&D, none of us were born playing D&D. So can you imagine what it would have been like if you decided you never wanted to even try playing? Because that was something new at some point, so trying something new is always beneficial no matter what. Even if you end up not liking it, you know what? It's okay. At least you tried. I'm good at, no, don't get me wrong. I'm good at painting curves when it comes to non-metallic surfaces. The parts that I struggle with are specifically doing things like non-metallic metal and making those surfaces look like they are both round and reflective. That's the part I struggle with. Calco, you really want me to do that mermaid? Good grief. By the way, I don't know if I told you all, I haven't mentioned this in a while. If you would like to kind of help influence what I paint on stream, each week, unless I have something specifically that I really want to do on stream, I will post all of the primed miniatures that I have available to paint, and I will put it to y'all for a vote. I'll put it up for a vote. And whichever miniature gets the most votes, that's where I'll paint next. So there is a mermaid that I posted a while back that I haven't posted recently for basically personal reasons. That Calco is referring to, but I personally was like, be cool to do this model, but I'm not sure if this is something that I really want to paint right now, and so I didn't post it again. But I've got a couple others that I'd like to paint. Like I've got a Githyanki warrior that's really rad. I did the pirate lady. So what else do I have over there? I don't remember. I'd have to go look. Oh yeah, I've got another bust. It's an orc warrior who looks absolutely sweet. She looks amazing, and I would really like to paint her. So y'all choose her. There we go. There we go. I think that looks a lot better. But I think what I'm sensing, about this is there's a discontinuity, and I don't know if y'all can tell it too. There's a discontinuity between the aging and the weathering I did on the leather and the aging and weathering that I did on the actual rivets. So I think what I'm sensing is like it just doesn't have a whole lot of continuity. So what I think I'm going to do is take a little bit of maybe just dial down the luminance a little bit. I think that might help. I could do that by glazing on a wash and giving it a little bit more color. I could do that by stippling on some rust effect. So I think that's what I'll do. I kind of like that idea now that I said that out loud. So I'm gonna grab my texture palette again. And where's my rust brown? It is ironic that it's called rust brown, but it is definitely more of a red. Where did I put it? I know it's here somewhere. For those of y'all who have seen my paint rack will understand why I lose all this stuff all the time. Well, that's unfortunate. Where would I have put it? It's not up there. Oh well. Oh, there it is. Haha, found it. Rust brown. It was not in the place where I'd normally put it. So we'll throw down some of this rust brown. We'll pull in some, where are you at? Earth brown. And then we'll get our one of our stippling brushes out, which is just an old dry brush that I have completely abused. We'll go ahead and grab some of this brown here, and then we're just going to lightly put some of that color on our rivets at random points. We're just basically using the very tips of the brush to just kind of tap on some little dots. Let's kind of make it look like it's pitted. We're starting with brown because if you look at rust, it's not all monochromatic, right? Rust will have different shades of brown and red and different levels of oxidation and things like that. So I start with a brown, a lighter brown, and then I'll move on to kind of a deeper reddish brown, and then I'll put on some of the actual rust color. It's kind of like a rust orange. Even though it definitely says rust brown, it's definitely not a brown. Because that right there is definitely not a brown. Alright, then we'll take some Muddy Brown by Reaper. It's a bit of a darker brown and it has a little bit more of a red tint to it. And then we'll do the same thing with that. Again, just random spots on these rivets. And what this is also going to do is it's going to make it look a little bit not more realistic, although it will do that as well. It'll make all these transitions naturally look a bit smoother because a lot of those harsh lines are now being covered up. And it's going to dull down, which is exactly what I wanted it to do, those bright spots. And if you ever want to do this, just keep in mind that nothing rusts uniformly, right? So one rivet is not going to rust in the same exact way as another. So you're going to want to kind of make them look a little different, put all of your, maybe one has more rust spots. Maybe the other one has a ton of rust. Maybe one has none at all or minimal. It all depends on a bunch of different things, but in your case, it depends on what you just how you want it to look. Just gonna look back over, see if there's any spots where I think need a little bit more or less. Because again, one of the things that I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting this to dull down a little bit that brightness that we had earlier. So I think I want to apply a little bit more of the brown. And here we go. Not necessarily how old the armor is, because oxidation can happen because of numerous different things besides age. Oxidation could happen due to exposure to heat and oxygen. Like if he went to Avernus, his armor would oxidize a lot faster than it would in Faerun, right? It also depends on how humid place is. Like, even though you have heat, his armor won't oxidize as fast maybe in the desert as it would in, you know, Florida or South America or something like that. Okay. Yep, that too. There's a thousand different factors, and age is only one of them. Like maybe he got into a big battle, and during that battle, his armor was nicked, and he didn't actually take time to re-oil it afterwards because for one reason or another. And all of a sudden his armor is pitted and the rust has started. And the thing about rust is like like cancer. It once you have it, it just spreads, and it really is very tenacious. So it's nasty stuff. In fact, one of the biggest pieces of advice that my dad gave me when buying, you know, used cars is make sure it doesn't have rust, because if it has rust, one of two things are going to happen. You'll never get rid of it, or you're going to have to replace that entire bit of metal in order to get rid of it. And you could always end up with, if there's rust in that place, it's always going to be rust somewhere else. So, all right. So I think that looks good. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go and do some lining on his shirt. So I'm going to take some Nuln Oil. I'm not going to be using this guy in the game. Why in the world? Not all of my miniatures are used to game. In fact, most of them aren't. At least the ones that I'm doing on stream aren't used for gaming. Fair enough. So I'm just doing a bit of recess shading here on his shirt. Just going to add a little bit of that detail, bring out some of that, those almost hidden details, right? Which I always find fun whenever you can bring out stuff that, like, you throw a quick wash in some recesses and all of a sudden things pop and it looks 10 times or 30 times better. I don't know why I jumped from 10 to 30. That was kind of weird, but the point still remains. But like all those cool details now just pop right out in your face. Thanks for the follow, Tricky. I appreciate it, man. Welcome to the Storm crew. Also, if you would like to continue this discussion offline, I have a Discord as well. I think Calico already linked it, but if ! Discord will take you there. Well, we appreciate you too, man. And that is said in all genuineness. I really do appreciate everyone who stops by. So, and there he is. Welcome to the Discord, my guy. So I switched to a more of a brown wash, that Agrax Earthshade, and I'm just tracing out some of these kind of smaller folds between on each side of that like main crease there. And the reason I'm doing that is it would naturally not be as shadowed as the other one. So, all right. So kind of going over what we have to do next. I'm going to do all the weathering and the non-metallic metal on the strapping, and then the hilt and scabbard bits on the sword. So after that, I think we'll call it quits. As far as the bus goes, as far as tonight, we're at about 2.5 hours. I think everything that we have to get done would take probably a little bit longer than the 3 hours that I normally allot for my stream. So I think I'll go ahead and call it there. I'm going to go ahead and, as always, I'm going to post some pictures on my Discord as well as the Trials of Imagination Discord on our progress so far. If you have any questions or suggestions, just let me know. But as always, thank you all for showing up. Thank you, Tricky, for giving me the follow. And I hope to see you all same place, same time on Monday next week. All right. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and see you later.